Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the course of Mobile Application and Development CS417. It's lecture number 19, and today we'll discuss about SQLite Primer. These PowerPoint slides has been taken for teaching and learning purposes under Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License and for Android developers by Google. Here is the link for the slides. You can also visit this link for further tutorials regarding mobile application development in other languages like Kotlin and Java. So here is the agenda for today's lecture. Today we will discuss about SQLite database in some detail, and we will see the queries we used in SQLite for SQLite database. So this is only for our refresher because this course assumes that you are familiar with database in general and SQL databases in particular. You have a knowledge of SQL query language because you have taken the course of database management systems in your previous semesters. So that's why this course assumption is that you are familiar with SQL query language as well. And this chapter is a refresher and a quick reference because you will use in your projects SQL-like databases, and for that purpose the recap of SQL query language is very necessary. So what is SQLite database? SQLite database is an embedded SQL database engine, and it stores data in tables of rows and columns in the fashion like you see in spreadsheets. And field is what is a field is equal to what is a field in SQL like database? A field is equal to intersection of a row and a column. Okay, so this is the main concept. You have already seen this concept about the fields. What is a field? Field is an intersection of a row and a column. Okay, because let's say we have different fields in this fashion. So this column is a field. Okay, I will denote this with F1 and I will denote this with F2. Okay, so this is the column and this is the row. So when these two things are intersected together, then it forms a field. So we call this as a field. Okay, and field contains data. Field contains data, references to other fields or references to other tables. Let me erase this so that we can see this more clearly. Okay, so field contains data and references to other fields or references to other tables, and rows are identified by a unique IDs. So every row has a unique identifier which we called as a primary key, and rows are identified with the help of those primary keys. And column names are unique per table. This means that no one table contains two column names with the same name. So column names are always unique in per table. So here is an example of a table. Table looks like just like a spreadsheet. Here you can see these are the columns like underscore ID and the word and the definition, and these are the columns, and here you can see that these are the rows. Okay, these are the rows and these are the columns. We call these are the columns as well, and every column has a unique name, and every row has a unique ID. And what is this? Can you judge what is this? This is a table name. Okay, every table has a name in SQL. So we call this as an entity in database terminology. So every column has a name, every database table has a name. So this is an example of a table, and table is a combination of rows and columns. Intersection of rows and columns, we call that as a table. So SQLite is a software library and it implements SQL database engine that is self-contained. This means that it requires no other components. It is isolated, but it is self-contained. That's why it is very useful. And the second thing is that it is a serverless, requires no server backend. This is the second point. And it takes zero configuration. It does not need to configure for your application. It is configured by default. Okay, it is configured by default. Configured by default. Okay, it is configured by default. So no need to configure this by your own. It is configured by default. This is the advantage. Okay, and the last point is it is transactional. Changes within a single transaction in SQLite either occur completely or not at all. So this is a property of a transaction, that either transaction will be completed either fully or not at all. So it is a transaction. So try to remember these points. SQL database engine, it is a software library. First of all, it is a SQLite is implemented as a software library, and it implements SQL database engine as a self-contained. This means that it requires no other components, and it is a serverless. This means to run this database we do not need any server, and it is a zero configuration. It is all the configurations are configured by default, and it is a transaction. This means that single transaction in SQLite either occur completely or not at all. So this is a very good property, and it comes under asset properties. What is a transaction in the database terminology? Transaction is a sequence of operations performed as a single logical unit of work. Okay, so a transaction is always a sequence of operations performed as a single logical unit of work. Similarly, when you go to the bank and withdraw some money, we call that activity also as a transaction, because we select our account number. We first of all we type our PIN, and then we go to different options on the ATM screen, and then we will perform different transactions. So our transaction is a single logical unit of work. Logical unit of work must have four properties. That is called atomicity, number one, and the second one is called consistency, and the third one is called isolation, and the fourth one is called durability. So what is this? This is called ACID. Okay, these four properties must be met by a database system. A stands for atomicity, C stands for consistency, I stands for isolation, and D stands for durability. So this logical unit of work, which is called a transaction, must meet these four properties. Let's discuss these four properties one by one. All changes within a single transaction in SQLite either occur completely or not at all, even if the act of writing the change out to the disk is interrupted by program cache or operating system crash or power failure. So these changes within a single transaction in SQLite will either occur completely or not at all. This means that the single transaction will either execute completely or save whatever the data it is trying to access, or not at all, even if the act of writing the change out to the disk is interrupted by a program crash, operating system crash, or a power failure. In that case, our transaction will not be executed, and the required data will not be saved. So what is ACID? This is a property of databases. For properties, all or no modifications are performed. This means when a transaction is running, there are either two cases. One is all modifications are performed or no modifications are performed. Okay, so either all, this is the one step, or two. So remember this thing, or either this will occur or this will occur in ACID property. The second property is called consistency. When transaction has completed, all data is in a consistent state. Okay, this property must be met because in a database, consistency is of top priority. When a transaction has completed, all the data is in a consistent state, not in an inconsistent state. And the third property is isolation. Okay, modifications are made by concurrent transactions, because when we are talking about a database, we are talking about different transactions that are running together in a concurrent fashion. This means that modifications made by concurrent transactions must be isolated from the modifications made by any other concurrent transactions. This means that transactions executes in their own namespace, in their own area. No two transactions at the same time can access the data. So that's why we call it concurrency control. There is a concurrency control. Let me write this so that it is more clear. Concurrency controller in the database management systems, which is called, that controls this concurrency stuff or concurrent transactions. Okay, that deals with concurrency controller. Modifications made by concurrent transactions must be isolated from the modifications made by any other concurrent transactions. And the last one is durability. After a transaction has completed, its effects are permanently in place in the system. This means that the data is consistent and it affects permanency. The data is permanently stored in the database. So this is a very important concept in a database management system, which is called asset theorem. This is called an asset theorem. Okay, database management system, and we also call it and asset theorem. Okay, in databases. This is a theorem, and this is a very important concept in database management theory. So try to remember these points, and this is all about transactions, atomicity. This is the first one, and consistency, and isolation, and durability. These four properties must be met, otherwise the data stored in the database is not consistent, and it is the responsibility of the database to ensure all these properties at the same time: atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. After these properties have been checked by the system, the data will be saved to the database. So let's talk about the queries of the SQL-like database. SQL basic operations. Basic operations are insert rows. When you want to insert a new record in the database, for that we will see insert rows and delete rows as well, and as a result update values in a row. So these three operations are very important, and at the same time which is called retrieve rows that meet given criteria. In that case we are doing nothing but for the viewing purpose. Okay, this fourth part is for the viewing. If you want to view the data, then you can use this concept. This is for the viewing concept. Okay, retrieve rows that meet given criteria. So let's talk about SQL queries. Select word and description from word underscore list underscore table, where word is equal to alpha. So this is a select query. We called it as a select query. This is a select query, with the help of which we can retrieve different records from the database. This is a select query. And what are these things? These things are this is a keyword. Select is a keyword, and this word is a column. Okay, this is the column number 1, and after that description is column number 2, and this is a table name, word underscore list. This is a table name. Okay, this is a table name, and this is a criteria. Word, where word is equal to alpha, this is a criteria. Generic, this is the specific query, and this is generic query, where we can see that after the keyword select, we can give different columns with a column. We can give different columns with a comma, and this is the table name, and where column is equal value is equal to value. So this is the generic syntax of the SQL query. Select columns from table. Select columns. Select the columns to return. Select statement will select the columns to return, and use static to return all the columns. This is a special case, or mostly used if you want to return all the columns. Then you can use this static sign in your column in your select statement, and all the columns will be returned. And the from table specify the table from which to get the results. So this is a reference of the table from which we get the results. Now let's talk about the condition which is called where column is equal to value. Where is the keyword for conditions that have to be met. So we use where if we have conditions in our SQL query, and those conditions must be met. In that case we use where, and column value, column is equal to value is the condition that has to be met. In this place we can use these operators as well. Okay, common operators is equal to like operator, less than, and greater than. I hope you have seen these operators in your SQL database course, and you have used these statements before. What is this option which is called and order by and the limit? Here you can see that this is an SQL query where we are returning the ID column. Okay, this is a column which is called ID column from this table, and where the condition is word is equal to alpha, and we are joining two conditions together, and definition is equal definition like this is a percent sign, a pattern searching, and this is the word art, and again this is a percent sign, and after that order by word and descending order, and this is called limit. Okay, so what will this query returns? Do you have any idea what is the purpose of this query? I will wait for a few seconds, and then I will ask you again what this query returns, and what is the purpose of this and statement, and what is the purpose of this like and percent signs and order by and descending and limit. Do you have any idea? I hope you have guessed this correctly. We have used this and operator to combine two or more conditions. So let me write this: combine two or more conditions. Okay, combine two or more conditions, together. With the help of and, we can combine two or more conditions together. Okay, with the help of and what is this like operator? Like operator is use search pattern. Okay, we are using like, we are using it for the sake of search pattern. Okay, for the sake of search patterns we are using this. We are using this for the search pattern. And what are these symbols? Special symbols like percent sign. This means that in the middle we have the requirement of getting ART. We are not interested in what is in the initial position and what are on the last position. We are interested on the middle position, that any part of the string that contains art, return those words, those definitions. And this is for ascending or descending order. Let me write this also. This is for ascending or descending order. Okay, we can sort sorting purposes. We can sort ascending and descending order, and this is the first, only one result is required. Limit is only one result, topmost result is required. That's why we have used the limit statement. So In short, AND is used to combine different conditions together, and the like operator is used for pattern searching, and these percent signs are used along with like operator. This order by statement is used for the sorting purposes. If you want to sort a word, arrange the result set according to a specific column, then we can use this word which is called word order by, and this is the column name, and limit is the how many rows it should return by default. Because we have used the limit 1, in that case it will return only one row, the topmost row. Let me okay. So AND and OR connect multiple conditions together with logical operators, and order by omit, it is by default omitted, or ascending for ascending, DESC for descending order, and a limit get a limit number of results. So in this query we have used these statements AND and OR. We can connect multiple conditions together with the help of logical operators. Order by, it is by default omitted, but we can use it for sorting purposes. If you want to sort our records in ascending order or in descending order, then we can use this order by statement. And third one is called the limit. If you want that our result set is returned in a limited fashion, then we can use this limit statement. Sample queries are there, if you want to get the whole table, every record from the table, then you can use this special symbol which is called static from the table, which is called word list underscore table. It will get the whole table. Similarly, we can use this column syntax as well, word comma definition, and then from word list table, where ID here is the condition. Okay, we have used the condition with the help of this logical operator. This is a logical operator. This is a logical operator, and it returns alpha and particle as a result set. Two words, it returns two words, word and definition, alpha and particle, okay, from this table. More sample queries. So in that query, I hope you will guess what this query return. Select ID, this is the column and the table from this table name, and then where condition is equal to alpha and definition is like art. Okay, same query we have seen before. It will return ID of word alpha with substring art in the definition. Okay, so it will return in this fashion. And similarly, there is another query which is called select static from word list, order by word, and descending for sorting purposes, and limit 1. Okay, and sort in reverse. By default it is in reverse, and get first item, because we have used this limit statement, and sorting is by the first column, ID underscore ID. Okay, and it will return the result in this fashion, JSON format. So this is the again sample queries for your understanding purposes. Select static, it will return all the rows from this table, and it will return limit 2 and 1. Okay, these two results. Returns one item starting at position 2, and position counting starts at 1, not 0. Returns this result as a JSON format. So these are all about SQL queries. Now let's discuss about SQL raw queries. SQL raw queries has a special function. If you want to use queries other than SQL editor or SQL server editor, we can use this option which is called raw query, and this option is almostly used in programming side. Okay, let me elaborate this. If you want to use queries in your programming language. Presently we are working in Java and Android. So for example, if you want to create query in your programming language and then send those query objects to the databases, and then in that case we will use SQL raw query syntax. Okay, and this is for the programming language independent. Okay, let me write this thing. This is programming language independent syntax, because when we are doing programming in Java or Kotlin, we usually not write queries in a simple way. Instead, we mention our queries with the help of this raw query method provided by that particular programming language for that particular platform. Okay, so it is language dependent, not independent. It is language dependent, programming language dependent syntax. If you want to embed your queries in your programming language, then you will use raw query method. Okay, in simple words, if you want to use SQL statements in your programming language, then you will use this raw query method provided by the platform. So in this slide you can see that there is a variable which is string variable, and this string variable we have composed an SQL query we have seen before, and after that we pass this string as an object to this method. Okay, it has two arguments. First is a query string object, and the second one is called the null object. Okay, similarly query, again we have assigned a new query to this string, and again we have used as an arguments in a string object. So here you can see that we have prepare a new query, select word comma definition from word list underscore table where ID, this is a special sign because we are here using where statement. That's why we are given this greater than symbol sign and then this interrogation sign. This means when the query runs, it asks for you the ID. And after that we have created another string array which is called selection arguments, and in that we have passed 2. Okay, only 2. So this 2 will pass over here, and this query will be executed. Okay, raw query, same query, this is the same query Q1. Okay, and what are the arguments? The arguments are stored over this array. Okay, this is where arguments are stored. Arguments, because this query requires one argument which is called where statement. So where those arguments came from, we have created this query as a string, and then we have also created query parameters. We can say this as a query parameter. We have created an extra array which is called selection arguments, and we have given 2, and we have passed this string as a second argument. Okay, so this is the second argument. When this query runs, it will get this 2 from this parameter array. You can call this as a parameter array. Okay, you can call this as a parameter array, which is of type string. This is the parameter array. Okay, so these are the more sample queries. We can use more methods of this query. Select static from this table name where word is equal to alpha, order by word ascending, and limit 1 and 2, and then it returns alpha and practice. Okay, so here is a query. We can do this in this fashion. String table is equal to word list table, and string columns, new string columns. We have created an empty string. We have created an column array and passing them this sign, static sign, and we have also created a string object selection where word is equal to this, and where we can do this string array selected arguments new string. This is the parameter array, and group by is equal to null, and you can see that having is equal to null, and order by is word ascending, and string limit 2 and 1. So in that case we can use query. First of all, we're going to table, and this is the first argument table, and similarly we have given this is the 1 and this is 2 columns. Okay, this is also a way of doing different things, and this is the column number 3 selection, third array, and this is the fourth one, it's arguments, you can see over there, and this is the 5, and this is 6 number, and this is the 7 number. Okay, and at the last it can 8. So there are different ways of doing different things. It is your choice how you can handle those options in a way. Okay, so this is a simple way, this is a simple way, and this is some much complex, or in which we have to write more code. Okay, so this is a little bit complex. So what are the cursors? Cursor is a very important feature in SQL. They are just like pointers. Okay, they are just like pointers, and we can use cursors to access individual rows. They are somewhat similar to the pointers, and they are used to access individual rows. They are used to access individual rows. Okay, one by one. We can use this in a loop, and if you want to check some specific values from rows, then you can use cursors, because there is no such benefit we have found from SQL queries. When you want to iterate individual rows and select some particular values, we can use this cursor object. So queries always return a cursor object, and cursor is an object interface that provide random read write access to the result set returned by the database query. So the database query returned a result set, and if you want to investigate more to that result set, you can use a cursor object and think of it as a pointer to table rows. Okay, so this is a very good point. Think of it as a pointer to the table rows. You can learn more by visiting these links: SQLite website, and full description of the query language, and SQLite class and cursor class. So this is all about your today's lecture regarding SQLite primer. If you have any questions regarding today's lecture, you can email me on my official email, and I will reply you accordingly. Try to practice these queries by your own, by making a small app and a database in your mobile Android application, so that you can practice these concepts more thoroughly. See you soon, inshallah, in your next lecture. Till then, Allah Hafiz.